Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Jane here. You're welcome to a new video. So today I'll be showing us how to sew the Queen Anne's pattern that we drafted previously. If you've not seen that video, I'm going to leave it in the link, or you can just go back and check my playlist to watch that. So this is the pattern right here I cut out already, and note that this pattern I already added my half-inch sewing allowance to it. Also on my screen here I have the materials that I'll be working with. I have my boning, I have a scissors, I also have my corset cups. Now I did a separate video on how to achieve those cups without using a pattern paper. If it's something you're interested in, please check it out. It's also on the channel as well. Okay, so I already cut that out. I cut the main fabric and the lining together, and also I have the materials that I'll be using for the main body of the corset. So stick around, watch the video to the end, subscribe to the channel if you're yet to, and please leave a comment in the comment section while you're at it. So right here, what I'm going to do is to lay my pattern on top of my fabric, and so that we can go ahead and cut it out. For some of us who do not know how to transfer your pattern to your fabric, so this is how you do it. You just lay out your pattern on your fabric, and note that this pattern already I've added my half-inch sewing allowance to it. So when you're laying it out on your fabric, you wouldn't need to add extra allowances to it, except if the pattern you're working with does not have a sewing allowance to it. So that's what I've done here. I've laid my pattern on my fabric, and then I will be cutting it out. I'll be cutting out the main fabric and also the lining. So we are going to be cutting it out exactly like what we have on our pattern. So now that we are done cutting, this is what we have now. So we are going to be separating the pattern from the fabric so that we can start stitching them up. So the first thing we are going to do is to stitch the main fabric first, and then we'll stitch the lining separately. So we are going to be stitching the yoke of the back together with the lining. Same thing with the yoke of the front. We are going to be stitching them together. These are the only two parts, the yoke, these are the only two parts we'll be stitching together with the lining. But for the remaining, we'll stitch them separately. We stitch the back separately, we stitch the lining separately, and also the remaining part of the corset to stitch it separately, and the lining separately. So right here I have my fabric, the center back and the side back laid down. So what we are going to do, this is the main fabric. What we are going to do now is to take the side back, flip it on top of the center back, and then you're going to secure with pins. I will do this for this right side, and I'll also do this for the left side. So you flip it on top of each other, right sides facing each other. You use your pins to secure them, and you're going to take to the machine and stitch. Okay, so this is for the main fabric. I'll repeat the same thing for the right side as well. You flip it on top of each other, you use your pins to hold them, secure them together, and then you take them to your sewing machine, and you're going to stitch by half an inch. Okay, so this is for the main fabric. I'll repeat the same process for the front and also for the lining. So this is the lining of the back. What I just explained for the main fabric is what we are going to be doing for the lining, so we don't need to go over it again. So the same thing we just did for the main fabric is what we are doing for the lining. You flip it on top of each other, right sides facing each other. You take it to your sewing machine, and then you stitch. Now this is the front. Okay, so for the front also we have the center front. We are only stitching the main fabric. You lay the center front on top of it, you bring the side front, you place it on top of it, right side facing each other, you pin them down, and then you take it to the sewing machine, and then you're going to sew the two sides on your half-inch sewing allowance. And after that, you're done with that. You can also do the same thing for the lining. You should do the same thing for the lining. So now that that is done, we are going to move on to the yoke of the back. So for the yoke, we are going to be joining the main fabric and the lining together, not separately. So what I will do is to place the lining and the main fabric on top of each other, right sides facing each other. Then I'm going to secure them with my pins. So for the yoke, what you need to sew is just the pattern, that's the design, and the neckline. That is the only thing we are stitching for the yoke of this bag. You're only stitching the design, that's the keyhole design at the back, and we are going to be stitching closed the neckline. So that's what I'm going to go do now. After pinning them down together, we will take it to the sewing machine and we are going to run a stitch on the neckline of the back, and also we are going to be also closing off the design that we have at the back. All right, so now after we are done with that, this is what it looks like. So at this point, I'm going to cut out excesses on the neckline and also at the curve that we have. You see this is a curved end, so you need to cut out excesses, and also you need to notch. It's very important. It will allow your seam to relax nicely, and it will also give it a perfect look as well. So after notching, I'm going to turn it inside out. I'm going to use my scissors to poke out those little edges I have at the back so it lays flat and nice. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side of the yoke, and then I'll take it to the iron and iron. So after ironing, you can see that the design came out well and the lining is sitting comfortably inside the main fabric and is looking fine. So I'm going to be repeating the same process for the front. Okay, for the front yoke, I'm going to take it, I'm going to be joining the lining and the fabric together, right sides facing each other. We just secure them with pins so that they don't move around. So we are only going to be stitching the curved part, and that is it. We are not going to be closing off the neckline of the front. So we are going to only be stitching the sides, and after that you can go ahead and top stitch, and then you iron the yoke of the front. So that's what I have done here, and this is what it looks like. Now we are done with attaching the yoke of the front and the back, fixing the yoke of the front and the back. So for the front panel now, I'm going to go ahead and mark out my boning lines. So at this point, you can decide to create as many boning channels as possible, whatever kind of design that you are going for. This is the point where you can go ahead and make those designs. So I'm going to be using my ruler now to mark out the design that I want on this front panel, and I'm going to just go ahead and mark it out like that. Now that that is done, we are going to now be stitching up the boning. And how we are going to do this is to, first off, we are going to mark out the length of each of the boning we are requiring for this garment. So that is what I'll be doing, and then at the lower part I'm going to take out 1 inch. So I'm going to be measuring 1 inch at the lower part. So that part is where the boning is going to stop on all of the designs on this pattern. So the reason why we are marking out 1 inch is so that when you come to attach your breast cup to the pattern, and also to attach the lower part to this garment, you have space to work with and you don't have to sew exactly on your boning. So that is what I have done here, and now you can see that I've cut out my boning exactly to the point where I marked the 1 inch. So now after you've cut out your boning, the next thing to do is to get the casing for this boning. So how I'm going to do it is I've cut out a strip of fabric here, and I have it in the width of 2 inches. You can do 1 inch, 1.5 inch, sorry, but I have this in the width of 2 inches, and the length is the length of my boning, and then I added excess to it so that when you are done stitching you can comfortably cut out the remaining that you don't need, the excess that is not required. Okay, so after that, what we'll do is to take the boning. Okay, we're going to take this boning and we are going to stitch at the edge. We're going to stitch at the edge, just stitch by 0.25 or thereabout, 0.1 or 0.2 at the edge of the strip. align the boning and the strip together, and then you're going to stitch it all the way down. And after stitching down, you're going to now use the strip of fabric to roll over the boning. That way you cover the edges and you also cover the other edge of the fabric. Then you can now take this to your fabric, to your garment. You align it on the line that you have drawn on your garment, and then you take it to your machine and you're going to be stitching it down. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this process for the whole of the design for the front. I'm also going to do this for the back. All right, so after we are done that, this is what it looks like. This is the front and this is the back. This is what the front and the back looks like after we are done stitching the boning on top of it. You can see that the design came out well. I am loving it. So now I'm going to be setting that aside, and then we'll work on the front pattern. So for the front pattern, I'm going to be attaching my cups to the corset, and we are going to be pinning it down first before taking it to the machine to attach. I've done a video on how to cover this cup and how to make a corset as well. I will be leaving the link. If you're interested, you can go and check that out. So right now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and we are going to stitch the cup on top of our corset. So right now, this is what the corset looks like after we've stitched the cup on top of it. You can see the inside is clean and the outside is also clean. The corset is sitting nicely on the fabric. Next, what we are going to do is to attach the front yoke onto the corset to give it that our queen ant effect that we went for at the beginning. So for us to do this now, what you're going to do is to attach the corset and the yoke of the front. So to be able to do this, you are also going to be needing your lining as well. So for the lining, I've gone ahead to prepare it. I did the same thing that I did for the main fabric. I've stitched up the darts. I've stitched up the cup for the lining. So what I'll do now is to take my yoke, and then I'm going to place it on top of my corset. So just get the exact placement of where the yoke is supposed to sit. Okay, if you're forgetting that, you can go ahead and check out your pattern again. That way you know exactly where your yoke is supposed to sit for the front. So I've gotten the placement for where my yoke will be sitting at the front of my corset. Now what you do is to take it and then you flip it inward. That is how you are going to attach it. You flip it inward and then you pin it exactly at the point where it is supposed to sit. And after you are done pinning, the next thing you're going to do is to take your lining. Okay, you take your lining and then you're going to be placing your lining on top of it. So this way you're going to be placing the lining right side on top of the right side of the corset, and you're going to lay each other on top of you're going to lay them on top of each other. You're going to be matching up all of the edges at the front. Okay, so you're going to use your pins. At this point, you can use your pins to hold down the corset and the lining so that it doesn't move around. So before I do that, I'm going to be using my hemming tape as well. So this will help us to get a very clean finish at the neckline of our garment. So I'm going to be attaching my hemming gum to this so that when I take it to the machine to stitch, when I take it to the sewing machine to stitch, after stitching, I will iron it out, and then it will have this clean and laid down neckline. I won't have to be doing a top stitch, because doing a top stitch at this part of the corset might look a little bit stressful. So using a hemming gum is the best option to go on that part of it. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be taping it from one edge to the other. After taping it down, I will use my pins to secure all of the edges from top to finish, and then I will take it to the machine now, and I'm going to run a 1/2 inch sewing seam from one edge of the corset to the other. Okay, so after that, I'm going to take out the pins. After taking out the pins here, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the back. Okay, for the back yoke, I attached it to the bodies of the back, and this is what it looks like. I also used the hemming tape to ensure that the sides, the yoke, and the main garment stays flat. You can see what it looks like. So this is the front, guys. You can see that the yoke of the front is neatly attached to the corset, and the corset is actually sitting very pretty on top of my fabric, and this is what I love. So at this point now, you can go ahead and join the back and the front together. You can join it at the shoulder. You can do whatever you want at this point. You can decide to add your sleeve. You can also decide to add the lower parts of whatever it is that you're working with on this garment. So whatever works for you, you can go ahead and do that at this point. So but this is what I wanted to show us. I hope you guys find this video helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comment section. I love how clean and beautiful it is looking, and I hope that you are able to try this out. If you did, please let me know in the comment section. If this video has been helpful to you, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys on to my next one. You can see my Queen Anne is looking beautiful. I love it. Until I come your way, have a blessed day. Bye.